My daughter-in-law opened my medicine cabinet without permission, snapped my pills in half, and said that way they last longer, and we save money. That very same night, my heart began to fail. In the consultation room, the doctor stared at me and dropped a sentence that froze the entire room. "Ma'am, someone is altering your medication, and that could have killed you." At that instant, my daughter-in-law went as white as a sheet of paper. My name is Sarah. I am 67 years old, and I never imagined I would be writing these words. That afternoon in Dr. Miller's office, the air became so thick I could barely breathe. The fluorescent lights buzzed over our heads, while my son Ryan held my hand tightly, not yet understanding the magnitude of what we were about to hear. Vivian, my daughter-in-law, was sitting in the back with that polite smile she had perfected over 3 years. The same smile she used when she called me Mom, with a sweet voice while taking away everything I loved. Dr. Miller is not one to sugarcoat the truth. She has spent 30 years attending to patients at the General Hospital and has that direct gaze that makes you feel like she is seeing right past your skin. When she opened my file, her eyebrows furrowed. She reviewed the blood results 1, 2, 3 times. Then she looked me in the eyes and asked something that split me in two. "Mrs. Sarah, does anyone else have access to your medications?" I did not understand the question, or perhaps I did not want to understand it. Ryan did not understand either, but Vivian changed. I saw how her face lost its color, how her fingers clutched the edge of the plastic chair, and in that moment, I knew something terrible was about to come to light. "Your medication levels in your blood are dangerously irregular." The doctor continued with a firm voice yet loaded with concern. "According to your prescription, you should be taking 200 milligram extended-release pills. But the analysis shows that you are receiving fragmented doses as if someone had broken the pills." The silence that followed was deafening. Ryan squeezed my hand harder. I felt like the world was tilting to one side. "Breaking the pills?" my son asked, confused. "Why would anyone do that?" The doctor leaned forward with her hands clasped on the desk. "Because when you break an extended-release pill, you destroy the mechanism that controls how the medicine is released into the body. Instead of receiving the correct dose over 24 hours, the patient receives dangerous spikes, followed by sharp drops. For someone with cardiac arrhythmia, like you, Mrs. Sarah, that can provoke cardiac arrest." My mind flew back 3 weeks. To that moment in my own bathroom in front of the stained mirror that I no longer cleaned because Vivian said I wasted time on details. I had opened my pill bottle to take the morning dose and found something strange. The capsules were broken in half, neatly divided, as if someone had used a sharp knife. Vivian entered the bathroom at that moment, drying her hands on a towel. She saw me observing the bottle with a furrowed brow and said with that casual voice she used for the most poisonous things, "Oh yes, I split them myself." "That way, they last you longer and we save money. Those pills cost $400 a month, Mom. We cannot afford those luxuries." I remember that I wanted to protest that I opened my mouth to tell her that they were my pills, bought with my pension for my sick heart. But then she put a hand on my shoulder with that soft pressure I had learned to recognize as a warning and added, "Besides, you know that Ryan and I are tight on cash. Every little bit of help counts." I said nothing as always. That night, I took half a pill just as she had arranged. At 3 in the morning, I woke up with my heart beating like an out-of-control drum, sweating cold, feeling like an invisible hand was squeezing my chest. Ryan had to call the ambulance. And now, in this office that smells of disinfectant and fear, Dr. Miller was finishing putting together the puzzle that I had been refusing to see. "Ma'am, someone is altering your medication, and that could have killed you." All eyes turned toward Vivian. She, who always had an answer for everything, who always knew how to manipulate every situation in her favor, went mute. white as the paper of the medical prescriptions the doctor held in her hands, and I, Sarah Robinson, widow of Henry, a devoted mother and a forgotten grandmother, finally understood something I should have comprehended a long time ago. My daughter-in-law did not just want my house, she wanted me to disappear. But what Vivian did not know is that this afternoon in that office, something inside me also broke in half. And what came out of that crack was no longer the silent woman she knew. If you want to know how an older woman can go from victim to victor, subscribe, so you can keep hearing stories like this, stories of women who refused to die in silence. To understand how I arrived at that office with a broken heart and manipulated pills, I have to go back 3 years. To that Sunday in October when I opened the door of my house in the suburbs and saw Ryan standing on the threshold with 2 suitcases and a woman I had never seen smiling at his side. "Mom, this is Vivian," my son said with that light in his eyes that only men in love have. "We got married 2 months ago. Sorry for not inviting you." "It was something intimate. We need to stay with you just for a couple of months while we save up for the deposit on an apartment." A couple of months turned into 3 years, but I did not know that yet. My house is not big. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen, and a living room that share the same space. I bought it with my late husband Henry 30 years ago, back when prices were still accessible for working people like us. He was a mechanic. I worked cleaning houses. Every brick of that building cost us sweat and sacrifice. When Henry died 8 years ago from a sudden heart attack, I was left alone with my memories and a Social Security check of $1,500 a month that barely reached enough to live on. Ryan is my only son. I raised him with all the love a mother can give sometimes, with too much love, I admit now. After his father's death, he became more distant, visiting me less and less. When he appeared that Sunday with Vivian, I felt that God was returning my son to me. How foolish I was. Vivian was 32 years old, 10 years younger than Ryan. She was thin, tall, with hair dyed a blonde that did not look natural on her, but which she wore with pride. She wore tight clothes and spoke with that affected accent that tries to sound refined. From the first moment, her eyes scanned my house as if she were calculating the value of every single thing. "How cozy, Mom," she said while entering without waiting for an invitation. Her heels clicked on the tile floor that I had just mopped. With a little modernization, this could look very good. I did not like that word, modernization. It sounded like erasing, like replacing, like everything of mine was useless. The first few days were a perfect performance. Vivian helped me in the kitchen, asked me for Henry's recipes, called me Mom with a honeyed voice. Ryan worked a double shift at the auto parts factory where he was a supervisor. He left at 6 in the morning and returned at 9 at night. I thought that at least I would have female company at home, someone to drink coffee and chat with. How naive. The first sign arrived in the second week. I was preparing a pot of stew when Vivian entered the kitchen with a bag from the grocery store. She took out a shiny stainless steel pot and said casual as someone commenting on the weather, "Mom, your pots are very old. I bought this new one. It is better that you use modern ones. Yours have already given what they had to give." I looked at my heavy ceramic pot, the same one my mother gave me when I got married, 40 years preparing meals in it. 40 years of flavor and memory cooked over a slow fire. "This one works fine," I said, trying to sound firm but without confronting her. "Not anymore, Sarah," she replied, and I noticed she had stopped calling me Mom. "Besides, they take up a lot of space. I am going to store the old ones in a box in the backyard." She did not store them. She threw them away. 3 weeks later, I found my ceramic pots and my cast iron skillets in the trash, broken accidentally, when Vivian was organizing. When I asked her, she hugged me with fake tenderness. "Oh, sorry, Mom, they slipped. But you already have the new ones right. It is better this way, believe me." Ryan saw nothing wrong. "Mom, she is trying to help. The house needed a little renovating." That is how the dismantling of my life began, piece by piece, memory by memory. A month later, Vivian redesigned the living room. My lace curtains that Henry brought me from the city disappeared, replaced by gray, minimalist blinds. It is more modern, Mom. Nobody uses lace anymore. That is for old ladies. The silver picture frame with our wedding photo was put away because it makes the living room look outdated. In its place, she hung an abstract painting of black lines that she bought for $20 and that to me looked like framed garbage. But the worst part, what truly broke me, was my mahogany rocking chair. It was a beautiful piece, hand-carved with curved armrests and a high back. My father had it made specially as a wedding gift. For 40 years, I sat in it to darn socks to console Ryan when he was a boy, to mourn Henry after his death. That rocking chair knew all my secrets. It had absorbed all my tears. One Saturday, I returned from the market, and it was not in its place by the window. I found Vivian in the backyard with the rocking chair thrown among old scrap metal and trash bags. One of the armrests was splintered. "What are you doing?" I screamed something I rarely did. "Oh, that. It is just in the way, Mom. It takes up a lot of space, and it is very old. I already bought a new armchair, minimalist style. You are going to love it. That rocking chair was a gift from my father." "Well, your father had very outdated tastes," she replied, wiping her hands on her jeans. "It is time for you to move on, Sarah. Clinging to the past is not healthy." I cried all night hugging that damaged rocking chair. Ryan said nothing when I told him. He only sighed, tired. "Mom, they are just furniture. Vivian has good taste. Let her be. She knows about these things." That is when I started to understand that I had lost something more than a rocking chair. I had lost my son. The 2 months turned into 6, then into a year. Every time I asked when they would move, Vivian had an excuse. That the apartments were too expensive, that Ryan had just had an unexpected expense, that it was better to save a little more. Meanwhile, my house ceased to be mine and I became a stranger in my own home. But I still had not seen anything yet. Because Vivian did not just want my house, she wanted me to cease existing inside it. And little by little, with the patience of a snake, she was achieving it. A year and a half into living together, I no longer recognized my own house. But the worst part was not that. The worst part was that I no longer recognized myself. I had become a shadow that walked on tiptoes through the hallways, that asked for permission to use her own kitchen, that apologized for existing. And Vivian knew it. She enjoyed it. The mornings were my moment of daily torture. I have always been an early riser. Since I worked cleaning houses, I have the habit of getting up at 6. I like to make myself a pot of coffee the way my grandmother taught me, with cinnamon and brown sugar, sit in the kitchen and watch the sunrise through the window. It was my sacred moment, my only space of peace, until Vivian decided that that moment belonged to her too. One morning, I went down to the kitchen and found her there in a pink satin robe and her hair wrapped in a towel. She had moved all my kitchenware. The coffee pot I used was stored in the highest cabinet out of my reach. In its place, there was a shiny Italian espresso machine. "Good morning, Mom," she said without turning to look at me pressing buttons on her new machine. "I am going to start making breakfast early. Ryan needs to eat well before work. You can eat breakfast later, right? After all, you do not have to go anywhere." I stood there barefoot on the cold floor, feeling the words get stuck in my throat. "You do not have to go anywhere." As if my life had no purpose, as if my days were empty and insignificant. "I also eat breakfast early," I managed to say with a voice barely audible. "Well then, you will have to wait," she replied, beating eggs in my frying pan. "The kitchen is not big enough for both of us to be here getting in each other's way. Besides, I already reorganized everything. Now things are where they are supposed to be." Where they are supposed to be? In my kitchen, where I cooked for 30 years, where I fed my husband and raised my son. Now things had to be where Vivian decided, but I said nothing. I never said anything. I went up to my room with an empty stomach and a heart even emptier. From the window, I saw Ryan leave for work, kissing Vivian at the door. Neither of the two turned toward my window. I was invisible. The unwritten rules multiplied every week. I could not watch television in the living room because Vivian was watching her gossip shows. I could not wash my clothes on Sunday because that was Vivian's laundry day. I could not invite my cousin Eleanor for coffee because the house is not ready for visitors. The house. Which house? The one I paid for with 40 years of work, the one that has my name on the deed. But I did not even dare to say it out loud anymore. The most painful change came when Vivian decided that my bedroom was too big for a single person. One afternoon, I returned from buying bread and found two men taking apart my double bed, that bed where I slept with Henry for 28 years, where Ryan was born, where I cried as a widow. "What are you doing?" I asked, with my heart pounding against my ribs. Vivian appeared in the doorway with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Oh, Mom, good thing you are here. Look, Ryan and I need more space. We are going to take the master bedroom. We installed a single bed for you in the utility room. It is smaller, but sufficient for you, isn't it? After all, you are alone." The utility room, a space of 6 feet by 9 without a window with a naked bulb hanging from the ceiling. That is where I kept the brooms and old junk. That is where Vivian considered I should sleep. "This is my bedroom," I said, and my voice sounded broken, pathetic. "I slept here with my husband." "Your husband died 8 years ago. Sarah," Vivian replied, and she used my name as if it were an insult. "It is time for you to get over that. We are a young couple. We need privacy and space. You should understand that." "But Ryan," I started to say. "Ryan agrees," she interrupted me. "In fact, it was his idea. He is already tired of you pretending that this house is still yours, when clearly it belongs to both of us now. We are your family now." Those words were like acid on an open wound. Ryan, my son, wanted me to sleep in the utility room. He wanted to erase me from the spaces I built with his father. That night, when he arrived from work, I waited for him in the living room. I needed to hear it from his mouth. I needed him to look me in the eyes and tell me it was true. "Ryan, do you want me to leave my room?" He did not even look at me. He was tired, his coveralls stained with grease, his shoulders slumped. "Mom, don't start. Vivian and I need our space. We are no longer newlyweds living in your house. This is temporary until we leave, but while we are here, we need to be comfortable." "And me?" I asked, and I hated how weak my voice sounded. "Do I not need to be comfortable in my own house?" Then something changed in his expression, a shadow of annoyance of being fed up. "See, that is why Vivian says you are difficult. You always play the victim. We are asking you for a temporary favor, and you turn it into drama. You know what, Mom, grow up. You are no longer the queen of this house." I stood frozen. My son, the boy I rocked when he cried at night, the teenager I defended from bullies at school, the man I supported when he lost his first job, had just told me to grow up, that I was not the queen of my own house. I moved to the utility room that same night alone in the dark, lying on a single bed that smelled of dampness. I heard through the walls how Vivian and Ryan laughed in my bedroom, in my new bed that they had bought without asking me. And there, in that room where I kept the brooms, I started to understand something terrible. Vivian had not invaded my house out of necessity. She had done it for conquest, and Ryan was not her victim. He was her accomplice. But the worst was yet to come. Because when Vivian finished taking my space, she decided it was time to take my dignity too. And for that, she needed me to disappear a little every day until finally I ceased to exist completely. The first day of every month, I went to the bank to cash my Social Security check, $1,500 that the government gave me for the years I worked cleaning offices and other people's houses. It was not much, but it was mine. It was enough for my medicines, my food, my personal expenses. It was my independence, the only thing I had left, until Vivian decided that that money belonged to her too. It was a Tuesday in February. I remember the sticky heat that was already announcing spring. I had just returned from the bank with my envelope of cash when Vivian intercepted me in the living room. She was holding a folder in her hands and wearing that smile I had already learned to fear. "Mom, we need to talk about money," she said, sitting on the armchair she had bought to replace my old sofa. She patted the cushion next to her like someone calling a dog. "Sit down." I sat down, hugging my purse against my chest, as if that could protect me from what was coming. "Look, I have been doing the math." She opened the folder and took out a sheet full of numbers. "You live here, use electricity, water, gas. You eat what we buy. It is fair that you contribute, don't you think?" "But I buy my things," I said, feeling the floor move beneath my feet. "I pay for my medicines. I buy my food." "Oh, Sarah, please." She interrupted me, and her voice lost all feigned sweetness. "Your food, you eat what I cook, use my gas dirty, the dishes I wash. The electric bill last month came to $400. Do you know why? Because you spend all your time with the fan on in that little room where you sleep. $400. I knew it was a lie. Our electric bill had never passed 150, even in the hottest months. But Vivian had the paper in her hand, the printed numbers, the sure voice of someone who knows they have the power. "Besides, there is the water," she continued, pointing to another line on her invented list. "You bathe every day, wash your clothes, and then there is the food. I calculate that you eat about $200 a month of what we buy." "Vivian, I buy my own bread, my milk crumbs." She exploded, and there I saw the real woman behind the mask. "You buy pure crumbs and expect us to support you as if you were a queen. Well, it is over, Sarah. Either you pay your share or you look for somewhere else to live." The silence that followed was like a punch in the stomach. Look for somewhere to live in my own house, in the house that Henry and I built brick by brick. How much I asked, and I hated myself for sounding so weak. "Half of your pension," she said, as if it were the most reasonable thing in the world. $750. It is fair. With $750 out of my $1,500, I would be left with $750 for my medicines, which cost $400 for my transport for any emergency. It was impossible. It was suffocating. It was robbery. But I looked at those cold and calculating eyes, and I knew that if I refused, Vivian would find a way to make my life even more miserable. Or worse, she would convince Ryan that I was a burden they had to get rid of. "All right," I whispered, and I felt something inside me break definitively. Vivian smiled, satisfied like a cat with a trapped mouse. "I knew you would understand. From now on, every first of the month, you give me your money. I will manage everything, do not worry." Manage. What a pretty word to say. I will control down to the last dollar that belongs to you. That month, I handed over my envelope, the next one too, and the next. Meanwhile, I watched how Vivian bought new clothes at the mall, how she got her nails done every week at the salon for $60 a session, how she ordered food delivery from expensive restaurants because she was too tired to cook, all with the money that I handed her as tribute for existing in my own house. But the biggest humiliation did not come from the numbers. It came from the words. It was a Saturday afternoon. Vivian had invited 3 friends over for lunch. I was in my little room reading an old magazine when I heard their voices in the living room. They spoke loudly, laughing boisterously. Curiosity made me approach the door. "No, seriously, girls," Vivian was saying between bursts of laughter. "I live with my mother-in-law, and it is a nightmare. The old lady spends all day doing nothing, just wasting electricity and food." "And why don't you kick her out?" asked one of her friends. "Oh, because Ryan is very good, very noble. But I already told him either your mom cooperates or she leaves. And now she gives me half her pension every month. Something right." The laughter that followed pierced me like knives. She called me the old lady. She said I spent all day doing nothing when I cleaned the entire house because she never lifted a finger. She bragged in front of her friends that she had forced me to pay her to live in my own house. "Damn mother-in-law," said another of the friends. "They are a burden, truthfully. My mom also has one and says the same thing." "They just get in the way and spend money." "Exactly," replied Vivian. "But well, at least I have her controlled. I give her just enough for her medicines and that is it. The rest I keep because honestly I do work. I work putting up with her." They laughed. They all laughed at me while I was 10 feet away, hiding like a thief in my own house, feeling how every word made me smaller, more insignificant, more invisible. When Ryan arrived that night, I tried to speak with him. I told him what Vivian had said, how I felt, how much it hurt to pay for a roof that was already mine. He did not even lift his eyes from his cell phone. "Mom, Vivian works all day maintaining this house. It is normal that she is stressed and vents with her friends. Stop spying on conversations that are not for you." "Works all day," I exploded, and my own voice surprised me. "Vivian does not work. She spends her time watching television while I clean cook the little they leave me wash." "Enough," Ryan interrupted me, and in his tone there was something new, something hard, almost cruel. "I am tired of your dramas. Vivian is right. You are a burden, an emotional burden that does not stop complaining. You should be grateful that we let you live here. Let me live here in the house with my name on the deed. Grateful to my son for not throwing me into the street from my home. I did not respond. What could I say? My son was no longer my son. He was Vivian's husband, the man she had molded during 3 years of constant manipulation. The boy I raised with love and sacrifice had disappeared, replaced by this stranger who saw me as a hindrance. That night, lying on my single bed in the utility room, I did the math. With the little I had left after giving money to Vivian, I barely had enough for my heart pills. If I had any emergency, if I needed to go to the doctor, if my shoes broke, I would not have the means to pay for it. I was trapped a prisoner in my own house, paying for the privilege of being humiliated. And the worst was yet to come, because Vivian had discovered that as long as I was still alive, she would have to share the space share. Ryan's attention, share the inheritance she coveted so much. And a woman like Vivian does not know how to share. She only knows how to take, consume, destroy. My pills were in the bathroom cabinet, the same ones that kept me alive, the same ones that cost $400 a month. And Vivian had already seen them. The diagnosis arrived 6 months ago, right in August. Cardiac arrhythmia, said the cardiologist at the General Hospital. Nothing fatal if controlled, but dangerous if ignored. My heart beat irregularly sometimes, very fast, sometimes skipping beats as if it forgot its function. They explained to me that it was common at my age, aggravated by years of hard work and the stress of becoming a widow. Dr. Stevens, a serious man with thick glasses, handed me the prescription with a grave expression. "Mrs. Sarah, this medication is vital. It is called CardioX Extended Release, 200 milligrams. You must take it exactly as indicated, 1 complete capsule every 24 hours. Never, under any circumstance, split or crush the pills." Understood. What happens if I do? I asked, never imagining that that question would have such terrible answers. The capsules have a special coating that releases the medication gradually throughout the day. If you break them all, the content is released at once. It can cause a dangerous drop in blood pressure, severe dizziness, or in your case, worsen the arrhythmia to the point of causing cardiac arrest. I nodded, scared but confident. I would follow the instructions to the letter. I wanted to live. I still had things to do, even though my life had been reduced to that dark little room, and counting the days, hoping everything would improve. The prescription cost $400 per box, enough for 1 month. It was almost half of what I had left after paying Vivian, but I had no choice. Without those pills, my heart would turn into a time bomb. When I arrived home that day with the pharmacy bag, Vivian was in the kitchen eating imported cookies that cost $10 a package. She saw me enter, and her eyes immediately locked onto the bag. "What did you buy?" she asked with that casual tone she used when she was calculating something. My medicines. I have a heart problem. She stood up and snatched the bag from my hands before I could react. She took out the box, read the price on the sticker. I saw how her expression changed, how her eyes narrowed doing mental math. $400, she said, whistling softly. Every month. That is $4,800 a year just on pills. I need them to live, I replied, reaching out my hand to recover my box. She held it out of my reach, studying it as if it were a valuable object. Do you really need a whole pill every day? It seems like a lot. Surely half is enough. That way they last you 2 months instead of 1. You save $400. The doctor said I cannot split them. Doctors always exaggerate, she replied with a smile that did not reach her eyes. They want to sell more medicine. It is a business. But we are not rich, Sarah. We have to be smart with money. She returned the box to me with reluctance. That night, I stored my pills in the bathroom cabinet, that old piece of furniture with the stained mirror where I had always kept my things. I thought they would be safe there. How foolish I was. The first 3 months, everything went well. I took my pill every morning. My heart stabilized. The dizziness disappeared. Dr. Stevens was satisfied with my progress. I see that you follow the indications to the letter, Mrs. Sarah. That is how I like it. But Vivian had not forgotten about those $400 a month. I saw her looking at me sideways when I went to the bathroom in the mornings. I heard her make comments about how expensive it is to maintain elderly people, about how much old people spend on medicines they probably do not even need. One day, 4 months after my diagnosis, I went to the market to buy vegetables. When I returned, I noticed something strange. The cabinet was slightly open, something I never left like that. I opened it and checked my pill bottle. Everything seemed normal. It was in its place with the correct quantity of capsules. But that night, when I took my dose, something felt different. The capsule seemed smaller, lighter. I observed it under the light of the naked bulb in my room. It had a faint line in the center, as if it had been opened and closed again. I attributed it to my imagination, to my growing paranoia. I took it. At 2 a.m, I woke up with my heart racing, pounding so hard, I felt the pulsations in my ears. The room was spinning, my head felt as heavy as stone. I tried to stand up and almost fell. The walls were moving, the floor was tilting. I crawled to the bathroom, vomited, sat on the cold floor, trembling. I spent 2 hours there until the episode passed. By morning, I felt exhausted, confused. I thought it had been something I ate, perhaps the chicken left over from dinner. But it happened again, and again, and again. Every week I had an episode. My heart would run wild in the middle of the night, or my pressure would drop suddenly during the day, and I had to sit down before I fainted. The dizziness was constant. I started walking, hugging the walls for fear of falling. Ryan noticed nothing. He left early, arrived late. He barely saw me. Vivian, on the other hand, observed me with that expression that I now recognize as satisfaction, like someone watching a plan unfold exactly as planned. "Do you feel okay, Mom?" She would ask me with fake concern when she saw me pale, holding onto the doorframe. "You look bad. Could it be that you are being dramatic again? You know how old people are always looking for attention." "I feel dizzy," I managed to say. "Oh, but if you do nothing all day, how are you going to get dizzy? Surely it is psychological. You should stop thinking so much about illnesses." Psychological. As if my irregular heartbeats were my invention, as if the cold sweat and tremors were theater to get attention. 3 weeks ago, things got worse. I went to the bathroom one morning, opened my pill bottle, and froze. The capsules were split, all of them, neatly divided down the middle with a clean cut, as if someone had used a sharp knife or scissors. My heart skipped a beat that had nothing to do with the arrhythmia. It had everything to do with fear. Vivian entered the bathroom at that moment as if she had been waiting. She was drying her hands on a towel with that casual expression I already knew so well. "Oh yes, I split them myself," she said, like someone commenting that she washed the dishes. That way they last longer, Mom. And we save money. Those pills cost $400 a month. We cannot afford those luxuries. The doctor said, I started. But my voice came out broken without strength. The doctor does not pay the bills here. She interrupted me and her tone hardened. We do. Ryan and I work hard for this money. You just spend it, so we are going to be smart. Half a pill is enough. That way they last you 2 months. And before you start with your drama, I inform you that Ryan already agrees. Ryan agreed. My son had authorized them to alter my medication. The same son I nursed, whom I nursed when he had pneumonia at 7 years old, whom I waited up for every night of his adolescence. I wanted to protest. I wanted to scream at her that those pills kept me alive, that the doctor had been very clear about not splitting them. But then Vivian put a hand on my shoulder with that pressure I had learned to recognize as a silent threat. Besides, you know that Ryan and I are tight financially. Any help counts. Or do you prefer that we ask you to leave? Because that option is also on the table, Mom. I remained mute, trapped between two horrors, taking altered medication that could kill me, or ending up on the street without a roof or money, at 67 years old with a heart condition, with no one else in the world. I took the half pill, and the next one, and the next one. My body began to collapse. The episodes intensified. I stopped being able to sleep fully for fear of not waking up. Every irregular beat reminded me that I was playing Russian roulette with my own life, and Vivian knew it. I saw it in her eyes every time I stumbled, every time I grabbed the furniture to not fall. It was not concern I saw there. It was anticipation. Like someone waiting for the day to finally arrive to collect a long-awaited prize. She was not taking care of me. She was killing me, slowly, calculatedly, with the precision of someone who knows exactly what they are doing. And I was letting her do it. The nights became my personal hell. Lying in that single bed in the utility room with the light off because Vivian complained that I wasted unnecessary electricity, I listened. I listened to everything through the thin walls of my own house, and what I heard destroyed me more than any physical pain. It was almost midnight when I heard them. Ryan had just arrived from his double shift, exhausted as always. I heard his heavy steps in the hallway, the squeak of the door of my old bedroom opening. Then Vivian's voice, soft and manipulative like poison wrapped in honey. "My love, we have to talk about your mom." I remained motionless, holding my breath. My heart was beating irregularly as it always did lately, but now for a different reason, for fear of what I was about to hear. "Now, Vivi, I am dead tired," replied Ryan with a hoarse voice. "It is important. Look, I know she is your mom and you love her, but we have to be realistic. She is dramatizing all this about her illness." Silence. A silence that seemed eternal to me. "What do you mean?" my son finally asked. "I mean, she is exaggerating her symptoms to get attention. Old people do that, love." My grandmother was the same. She invented pains so that we would all be attentive to her. Your mom does the same. "But the doctor said she has arrhythmia." "Of course she has arrhythmia." Vivian interrupted him, and I could perfectly imagine her expression, that mixture of feigned patience and condescension. "But it is not as serious as she paints it. Have you seen how she suddenly gets dizzy when she wants us to pay attention to her? How she always feels bad precisely when we are having a moment alone?" "I had not thought about that," said Ryan, and in his voice I detected doubt. My son was doubting me. "Well, think about it. She has turned this house into a hospital where she is the eternal patient, and we are the nurses." "I cannot take it anymore, Ryan. I arrived tired after doing the grocery shopping, cleaning, cooking for the 3 of us, and she is lying down complaining of dizziness. Dizziness from what if she does absolutely nothing?" I wanted to scream. I wanted to break through that wall and show my son the truth, that I cleaned what she dirtied, that I cooked my own food because she had forbidden me from using her kitchen at convenient times, that I was dizzy because her hands had altered my medication, but my voice did not come out. I stayed there paralyzed in the dark, listening to how Vivian wove her web of lies around my son. Besides, she continued, and her voice became softer, more intimate, I think she is faking it so we do not leave. She knows that if she is very sick, you will never dare to look for our own place. It is emotional manipulation, love, and it is working. I don't know Vivi. She is my mom, and I am your wife, she replied, and now her tone had an edge. Who is more important, the woman with whom you build your future, or the woman who already lived her life and now only wants to control you? Because that is what your mom does, Ryan. She controls you with guilt. The silence that followed lasted an eternity. I was trembling with the sheets pressed against my chest, begging God that my son would say something, that he would defend me, that he would remember who I really was. You are right, Ryan finally said, and those 3 words pierced me like bullets. She has been very demanding lately, always with complaints, always playing the victim. Exactly, said Vivian triumphantly. And about her pills, did you see how dramatic she got when I told her to split them to save money, as if $400 were nothing? Does she know how much we spend in the house every month? More than $3,000. And she complains about contributing $750. Yes, it is true that pills are expensive. They are expensive because she insists on buying name brand. I told her there are generics that cost half, but no, she wants the expensive ones. And then she says she has no money. Please. That was a lie, pure lie. Dr. Stevens had explained to me that that specific medication did not have a generic version available, that those $400 were the standard price. But Vivian lied with such conviction that even I, who knew the truth, almost came to doubt. And what do you suggest? Asked Ryan. And in his voice there was no longer resistance, only fatigue and resignation. That we set clear limits. That we make it clear to her that this is our house now, that we make the decisions. If she does not like it, let her look for another place. She has her pension, she can rent a little room somewhere. A little room somewhere. As if I were garbage that gets thrown out when it gets in the way. As if 67 years of life, 40 of marriage, 30 of paying for this house meant nothing. I don't know if I can do that, Vivi. She is still my mother. Love. And now Vivian's voice became sweet again, seductive. I know you have a good heart. That is why I love you, but your kindness cannot turn into weakness. Your mom is taking advantage of you, of us. And if we do not put a stop to it, now this is never going to end. Do you want us to spend our whole lives locked up here, waiting for her to die, so we can live in peace, waiting for me to die? She said it like that, without beating around the bush, without shame. And Ryan did not protest. He did not say, "Do not talk like that about my mother." He said nothing. "Let me think about it," he finally murmured. "There is not much to think about, love. Either your mom changes her attitude and stops making drama, or we will have to make difficult decisions. For us, for our future." After that silence. Then sounds I did not want to identify. My son and his wife in my bed in my room discussing my future, as if I were a problem to solve, an obstacle to remove. I stayed awake all night with my eyes open in the darkness, feeling how every word I had heard drove itself deeper into my chest. My son, the boy born from my body, who nursed from my breast, who learned to walk holding onto my hands, believed I was a manipulator. He believed I exaggerated my illness. He believed I deserved to be thrown into the street. The following nights were worse because now I could no longer not listen. Every nightly conversation between them was a new stab wound. Your mom left dishes in the sink again. I don't know why we give her a roof if she can't even clean up after herself. Sarah, your mother ate some of the chicken I had saved for our lunch tomorrow. She is used to taking what is not hers. Did you see that your mom went out without telling us? Surely she went to gossip with the neighbors to cry to them about how badly we treat her. She is a busybody. And Ryan only nodded. Or worse, he added his own complaints. You are right, she is becoming impossible. I noticed it too. Every day she is more cunning. I think we are going to have to speak seriously with her. Every night I died a little more. Not from the heart, although that was failing too. I died from the certainty that my son had chosen to lose me. That Vivian had not had to try very hard to convince him that I was not worth the trouble. One early morning, after a particularly cruel conversation where Vivian suggested that perhaps my convenient illness would disappear if they forced me to move, I had a panic attack. My heart accelerated to levels I had never experienced. The walls of the room spun. I felt I was drowning, dying. I managed to crawl to the hallway. I held onto the wall, trying to reach his door to ask for help. I fell to my knees halfway there. Help, I whispered. But my voice did not come out. Ryan, help. The door to his room was closed, the lights off, and I was there lying on the floor of my own house, feeling how my heart beat erratically, begging my son to come out and see me. No one came out. No one heard. Or worse, they heard and decided to ignore me. I managed to drag myself back to my room. I spent the rest of the night sitting on the floor with my back against the wall, hoping that every irregular beat was not the last. In the morning, when they saw me pale and trembling, Vivian only said, "Again with your dramas, Mom. You should already get an Oscar for these performances." And Ryan laughed. My son laughed. That is when I understood something I should have accepted months ago. I was completely alone. In my own house, surrounded by my own blood, I was more alone than if I lived on the street. The question was no longer if Vivian wanted me to disappear. The question was how much longer I could survive her plan. And the answer, with my split pills and my heart failing every night, was not much. It was a Thursday night when my body finally gave up. I had spent the entire day feeling strange, as if I were floating outside my own body. The dizziness was constant. My vision blurred every time I stood up, but I said nothing. I had already learned that complaining only brought mockery and accusations of melodrama. It was 11 at night. Ryan had already arrived from work and eaten dinner in silence, while Vivian told him about her day of shopping. I was in my little room lying down, trying to calm my breathing. Every inhalation was an effort, as if I had a rock on my chest. Then it happened. My heart stopped. Not literally, but that is how it felt. 1 beat, 2, 3, and then nothing. A terrifying void that lasted eternities. When it started beating again, it did so with such force that my body arched on the bed. Then another pause, another void, another violent beat. I could not breathe. I could not scream. I could only bring my hand to my chest and feel how my heart rebelled against my body, beating without a pattern, without rhythm, without control. I managed to fall out of bed. The thud against the floor resonated in the house. I heard hurried steps. The door to my room flew open and Ryan appeared, his eyes wide with panic. "Mom!" he shouted, kneeling beside me. "What is wrong?" I could not answer. I only pointed to my chest, eyes full of tears that were not only for the physical pain, but for the relief of seeing my son finally looking at me with real concern. Vivian appeared behind him in a satin robe and a face of annoyance. "What happened now?" "Call an ambulance," Ryan ordered, holding my head. His voice trembled. "Quick, Vivian!" I saw the hesitation in her eyes. For an eternal second, Vivian looked directly at me, and I saw the naked truth in her expression. She was calculating if it was worth calling for help or if it would be better to let nature take its course. "Vivian!" Ryan shouted, and she blinked, breaking the spell. I'm going always so exaggerated," she murmured while taking out her cell phone. The following minutes were a blur of pain and terror. My heart continued its erratic dance, beating wildly and then stopping. I was sweating cold. My lips went numb. Ryan was crying, holding my hand, repeating, "Hang on, Mom, hang on." The ambulance arrived in 15 minutes that seemed like hours. The paramedics entered with their equipment. They put oxygen on me. They monitored my heart. I heard technical words I did not understand. Severe arrhythmia, fibrillation, unstable. They lifted me onto the stretcher. Ryan got into the ambulance with me, his face decomposed. Vivian stayed at the door of the house, arms crossed, watching me leave, with an expression I could not decipher, but which was not exactly one of concern. At the general hospital, they took me straight to the ER. Doctors and nurses moved around my stretcher like organized ants. They connected me to machines that beeped constantly. They injected me with something that made the world become blurry and distant. When I woke up, it was already early morning. I was in a hospital bed connected to a heart monitor emitting regular beeps. Ryan was asleep in an uncomfortable chair next to my bed, his head resting on the mattress. My hand was between his. For a moment, just a moment, I saw my boy. The 10-year-old Ryan who fell asleep next to my bed when I was sick with the flu. The teenager who took care of me when his father worked at night. My real son before Vivian. A doctor entered with a tablet in her hands. It was Dr. Miller, the same one who had treated me since my diagnosis 6 months ago. Her expression was serious, worried. "Mrs. Sarah," she said softly, waking Ryan with the sound of her voice, "I need to ask you some important questions." Ryan sat up, immediately rubbing his eyes. "Is my mom okay?" "She is stable now, but what happened last night was very serious. She had episodes of ventricular tachycardia. Her heart was completely out of control. If she had arrived 10 minutes later..." She left the sentence unfinished, but we all understood the ending. "But she has her medication," Ryan said, confused. "She takes it every day." "That is precisely what worries me," replied Dr. Miller, looking directly at me. "We ran full blood tests. The levels of her medication in her blood are extremely irregular. She has very high peaks followed by dangerous drops. That should not happen with her extended release medication." My heart, although now stable thanks to the intravenous drugs, skipped a beat. I knew what was coming. "Mrs. Sarah," continued the doctor, pulling up a chair and sitting in front of me, "does anyone else have access to your medications?" The question floated in the air like dense smoke. Ryan looked at me, waiting for my answer. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. "How do you tell your son that his wife is altering your medications? How do you pronounce those words without destroying what little remains of the family?" "Mom," said Ryan, squeezing my hand. "Answer, did anyone touch your pills?" I started with a broken voice. At that moment, Vivian entered the room. She had her hair perfectly combed, makeup applied, dressed as if she were going to a meeting and not to visit her mother-in-law in the hospital. She was carrying a plastic bag. "Good morning," she said with a bright smile. "I brought Sarah's pill bottle. I thought the doctors would want to see it." Dr. Miller extended her hand. "Yes, I was just about to ask for it. Thank you." Vivian handed her the bottle. For a second, our gazes crossed, and I saw something in her eyes that froze my blood. Defiance. She was daring me to speak sure that I would not dare. Dr. Miller opened the bottle and poured some capsules into her hand. Her expression changed immediately. Her brow furrowed. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "These pills are split," she said, and her voice had a sharp edge. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the machines seemed to stop making noise. "Split?" asked Ryan, looking at the capsules in the doctor's hand. "I don't understand." Dr. Miller held up one of the half pills, showing it clearly. "Someone cut them in half very neatly with something sharp." Her eyes moved between Vivian and me. "Who did this?" Vivian went rigid. I saw how the color began to abandon her face, but her voice came out firm, almost offended. "I know nothing about that. Sarah keeps her medicines in her bathroom. I don't even touch them." "Mom," Ryan turned toward me, "did you split them?" I shook my head. Dr. Miller stood up. Her presence filled the room. I need you to understand the gravity of this. Extended-release pills must never be split. The special coating controls how the medication is released over 24 hours. When that coating breaks, all the content is released at once. And what does that mean? Asked Ryan, although his voice was already trembling because he knew the answer would not be good. It means that instead of receiving a stable dose all day, Mrs. Sarah received massive doses, followed by periods without medication. For someone with her heart condition that is like playing Russian roulette, every dose was a gamble on whether her heart would hold out or not. The oxygen in the room seemed to evaporate. Ryan let go of my hand and stood staring at the split pills in Dr. Miller's palm as if they were evidence of a crime, because they were. But that means, my son started to say, and I saw how his brain worked connecting the dots he had been ignoring for weeks. That means someone could have killed her. Dr. Miller nodded gravely. What happened last night was not a normal arrhythmia episode. It was a direct reaction to improperly administered medication. Mrs. Sarah was lucky her heart resisted. Another person with her condition would no longer be here. Vivian took a step back, bumping against the wall. Her hands trembled slightly, but her expression remained one of calculated indignation. You cannot be insinuating that This is ridiculous. Sarah probably split them herself and now wants to blame me. She always does this. She always plays the victim. Mom. Ryan turned toward me, eyes shining with held-back tears. Tell me the truth. Who split your pills? I looked at my son, then at Vivian. She returned the gaze with those cold, defiant eyes. In her expression, I read the message clearly. If you speak, you lose your son forever. He will believe me, not you. But something had changed inside me. Perhaps it was the closeness of death. Perhaps it was seeing Ryan finally paying attention to me. Perhaps it was simply that I had nothing left to lose. Vivian, I said, and my voice came out firmer than it had sounded in months. Vivian split them 3 weeks ago. She told me that way they would last longer and we would save money. Lie, shouted Vivian, and her mask finally began to crack. She is lying. Ryan, your mother, is inventing things to separate us. But Ryan was not looking at her. He was looking at me, and in his eyes I saw something I had not seen in years. Doubt about Vivian. Finally, after so long, my son was questioning his wife. Is it true? Asked Ryan, turning toward Vivian. Did you split my mom's pills? I only wanted to help, stammered Vivian, and her voice lost all its previous security. The pills are very expensive, Ryan, $400 every month. I thought that with half it would be enough that we would save. You thought, replied Ryan. Who gave you the right to think about my mother's health? Who told you to play with her medication? You, replied Vivian, recovering some of her venom. You said your mom was an economic burden. You said she spent too much. You said we needed to save. I was only doing what you wanted. The room fell silent again. Ryan stood paralyzed with those words stabbing into his conscience. I saw the exact moment my son understood his own complicity. Dr. Miller cleared her throat, breaking the moment. I need to be very clear about something. What was done here was not an innocent mistake by someone who wanted to save money. It was criminal negligence that put my patient's life in danger. It was not negligence, I said, surprising myself with the firmness of my voice. I told her that the doctor had said I could not split the pills. I explained to her that they were extended release. She knew. All eyes turned toward Vivian. Her face, which had started to pale, was now completely white, like paper, just as I described in the office. I did not know it was so serious, she murmured, but her voice lacked conviction. Yes, you knew, I continued, and I felt something ancient and dormant inside me waking up. Fury. I told you the same day you split them. I told you that Dr. Stevens was very specific, and you answered me that doctors exaggerate, that they only want to sell medicine. Sarah, I never... And it was not just that. I interrupted her. my voice gaining strength with every word. "You said that if I didn't like it, I could leave, that option was on the table. You threatened to throw me into the street if I didn't take the split pills." Ryan let himself fall into the chair, hands covering his face. "My God," he whispered, "what have we done?" "What she did," corrected Dr. Miller, pointing at Vivian. "And I need to ask you directly. Mrs. Vivian, did you know that altering this medication could kill Mrs. Sarah?" Vivian opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her eyes darted frantically between all of us, searching for a way out that simply did not exist. Finally, something inside her snapped. "She is a burden!" she screamed, and her true nature spilled out like pus from an infected wound. "She lives in our house. She spends our money. She takes up our space. I just wanted things to be easier for us." "Easier," Ryan repeated, lifting his head to look at her. "You put my mother's life at risk to make things easier." "For us?" Vivian insisted, stepping closer to him. "Everything I did was for us, Ryan, so we could have our own life without your mother always being in the way. Do you not understand? As long as she is here, we will never be free." Free, Ryan's voice was barely a whisper loaded with horror. "Vivian, you almost killed her. My mother almost died because you tampered with her medication." "You are exaggerating," Vivian replied, but her voice no longer held any strength. "She was not going to die from taking half a pill instead of a whole one. She was just being dramatic as always." Dr. Evans intervened, her voice professional, but with an edge of steel. "Mrs. Vivian, you need to understand something. What you did constitutes a felony. It is endangering the life of another person. I am required by law to report this." The little color that remained in Vivian's face vanished completely. "Report? You cannot do that." "I did not do anything illegal. I just tried to save money." "You altered prescribed medication knowing it was dangerous," Dr. Evans continued. "Mrs. Sarah specifically warned you. You ignored those warnings and proceeded anyway. That is not negligence, ma'am. That is intentional." "Ryan." Vivian turned toward my son with desperation. "Tell them they are wrong. Tell them I would never do something like that. You know me. You know that I love you, that I love our life together." But Ryan was not looking at her. He was looking at me. And in his eyes, I saw something I had not seen in 3 years: recognition. Finally, after so long, my son was truly seeing me. "Mom," he said with a broken voice, "forgive me. God forgive me for not believing you, for not defending you, for letting this get so far." Tears began to roll down my cheeks. They were not tears of sadness, but of relief. My son had returned. Late, almost too late. But he had returned. "Ryan, you cannot believe her," Vivian pleaded with a shrill voice. "Your mother has always been manipulative. She is acting right now to get you on her side. It is what she has always done." "Shut up," Ryan said, and his voice was cold as ice. "Just shut up, Vivian. I do not want to hear your voice anymore." Vivian recoiled as if she had been slapped. For the first time since I met her, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. She had lost her control over Ryan, and she knew it. Dr. Evans headed toward the door. "I am going to call security and file a report on this incident. Mrs. Vivian, I suggest you get a lawyer." "A lawyer?" Vivian's voice was barely a squeak. "You cannot do this. Ryan, do something." But my son just shook his head with tears falling down his face. "I have already done too much, Vivian, or rather, I did nothing when I should have. And that almost cost my mother her life." Vivian looked at me then with pure hatred, without filters, without masks. "This is your fault," she hissed. "This is all your fault. If you had just left when you were supposed to, none of this would have happened." "No," I said, holding her gaze without blinking. "This is your fault, Vivian, for being greedy, for being cruel, for believing you could take everything from me, even my life, and get away with it." Dr. Evans returned with 2 security guards. "Mrs. Vivian, I need to ask you to leave the hospital, now." Vivian opened her mouth to protest, but the guards were already flanking her. With one last look of fury toward me, she allowed herself to be escorted out of the room. Her expensive perfume lingered in the air like evidence of her poisonous presence. When the door closed behind her, Ryan collapsed. He knelt beside my bed, took my hand in his, and cried like I had not seen him cry since he was a child. "I am sorry, Mom," he sobbed. "I am so sorry. I was an idiot, a terrible son. I failed you in everything." I stroked his hair like I used to do when he had nightmares as a little boy. "You are here now," I said softly. "That is what matters." But in the bottom of my heart, I knew this was not over. Vivian had shown her true face, yes. But a woman like her would not give up so easily, and I had to make sure she could never hurt anyone again. It was time to stop being the victim. It was time to fight. They kept me hospitalized for 3 more days. 3 days of constant monitoring, of adjusting my medication with controlled intravenous doses, of allowing my heart to relearn how to beat with the correct rhythm. 3 days in which Ryan did not leave my side, sleeping in that uncomfortable chair, bringing me water, apologizing every hour as if words could erase 3 years of abandonment. I forgave him. Of course I forgave him. He was my son, but forgiveness does not mean forgetting. And every time I closed my eyes, I saw the split pills. I heard the late-night conversations where he had agreed with every cruelty of Vivian's. A mother's love is unconditional, but trust once broken needs more than apologies to be rebuilt. On the second day, while Ryan had gone down to the cafeteria, I received an unexpected visit. The door opened and my cousin Linda entered with her leather briefcase and that elegant bearing that had always characterized her. Linda was 62 years old, a lawyer specializing in family law. And we had not seen each other in almost 2 years because Vivian had found 1,000 excuses to prevent her from visiting. "Sarah," she said, and her voice cracked upon seeing me connected to all those machines. She approached and hugged me carefully so as not to disconnect any cables. "I found out from a neighbor. I came as soon as I could. I cried in her arms. I cried everything I had not been able to cry in 3 years. All the accumulated pain, all the stored humiliation." Linda held me in silence, letting me empty all that anguish. When I finally calmed down, she sat in the chair Ryan had been occupying and pulled a notepad from her briefcase. Her expression had changed from family concern to professional concentration. "Tell me everything," she said. "From the beginning, and do not skip anything." I told her, every detail. The gradual invasion of my house, the loss of my bedroom, the money they forced me to pay, the constant humiliations, and finally the split pills and the veiled threat to kick me out if I did not obey. Linda wrote fast, her sharp eyes shining with something I recognized as professional fury. When I finished, she closed her notepad with a sharp snap. "Sarah, what Vivian did is not only morally reprehensible, it is legally actionable," she said, leaning forward. "We are talking about financial abuse, psychological abuse, and most gravely endangering your life by altering your medication. That is a criminal offense." "I do not want to get Ryan in trouble," I said immediately. "Ryan is an adult who made decisions," Linda replied firmly, "and now he has to face the consequences. But I am not talking about him. I am talking about you, about protecting you, about ensuring this never happens again." She pulled more papers from her briefcase. "First, that house is yours. It has your name on the deed. No one, absolutely no one, can force you to share it or pay to live in it. Second, the money they took from you monthly constitutes theft. You have the right to recover it. Third, we need a restraining order against Vivian. A restraining order. So she cannot get close to you or your property. She already demonstrated that she represents a real danger to your life, Sarah. Dr. Evans has already made the official report. That is solid evidence. The idea terrified me and liberated me at the same time. And Ryan, If I kick Vivian out of the house, will my son also have to leave? Linda sighed. That is a decision Ryan will have to make, but you need to set clear boundaries. No more invasions, no more abuse. Your house, your rules. If he wants to stay, it will be on your terms, not hers. I am scared, I admitted, scared of being left alone. Ryan is all I have left. Being alone is better than being in the company of someone who wants to destroy you, said Linda, taking my hand. And you are not alone. You have me. You have neighbors who love you. You have a life that deserves to be lived with dignity. At that moment, Ryan returned with a coffee in his hand. He stopped when he saw Linda, and something in his expression told me he knew exactly why she was there. Cousin Linda, he greeted with a tense voice. Ryan, she replied with professional coldness. I was just talking with Sarah about her legal options. My son went pale. Mom, please do not do this. I understand now. I know I made a mistake. Vivian and I will separate. She will leave, I will stay, and everything will go back to being like before. It cannot go back to being like before, I said softly. Ryan, I almost died. And you agreed with everything she did. You said I was a burden, that I was being dramatic, that I needed to grow up. He collapsed into a chair with his head in his hands. I know, and I hate myself for that. But I was blind, Mom. Vivian manipulated me. She made me believe things that were not true. Now I see it clearly. And what guarantees that you will not become blind again? Linda asked. What guarantees that in a few months, when your mother forgives you and lowers her guard, the resentment for having to take care of her won't return? That another Vivian won't appear? I am not like that, Ryan protested. I love my mother. Love is not enough when trust has been broken, Linda replied. Sarah needs legal protection. She needs to make sure her house, her money, and her health are protected. From everyone, even from you. The silence that followed was dense and painful. I saw my son processing Linda's words, finally understanding the magnitude of the damage caused. What do you need me to do, Mom? He asked, finally, with a small voice. Tell me what you need and I will do it. I looked at Linda. She nodded, giving me permission to speak. I need Vivian out of my house immediately with a restraining order. I need them to return all the money they took from me these past 3 years. And I paused because this next part hurt me more than anything. I need you to find your own place too. Ryan lifted his head sharply, his eyes full of tears. Are you kicking me out? I am not kicking you out, I said, and my own voice was trembling. I am letting you go. You are 42 years old, Ryan. You need your own space, your own life. And I need to recover mine. I need to go back to being Sarah, not just your mother, not just someone's mother-in-law, me, but I want to take care of you. Then take care of me by visiting me, by calling me, by being present in my life without living my life. I said with a firmness I did not know I had. Caring for me does not mean appropriating my space. It means respecting it. Linda took documents out of her briefcase. They discharged me on Monday morning. Linda picked me up from the hospital because Ryan had to be at work. And honestly, I needed someone by my side who did not carry the weight of 3 years of guilt. My cousin drove in silence toward my house, her leather briefcase in the back seat, full of documents that would change everything. As we approached the old neighborhood, I felt my heart racing, but this time, not because of arrhythmia. It was fear mixed with something more powerful, determination. During 3 days in that hospital connected to machines that kept me alive, I had had time to think, to remember who I was before becoming the shadow that hid in the guest room. Are you ready? Linda asked when she parked in front of my house. I looked at the modest facade of my home, the walls that Henry and I painted one Sunday in April 28 years ago, the living room window where I used to sit and embroider while he watched football. My house, not Vivian's house. Mine. Yes, I replied, I am ready. We had planned everything carefully. Linda had summoned Vivian and Ryan at 11 in the morning with the excuse of resolving family matters in a civilized way. She had also invited 2 witnesses. My neighbor Lucy, who had witnessed several of Vivian's humiliations, and Mr. Frank, the gentleman from the convenience store who had known me for 30 years. When we entered, Vivian was sitting in the armchair. She herself had bought painting her nails a deep red. She did not even look up when we walked in. Ryan was standing by the window with tense shoulders and a miserable expression. "You arrived," Vivian said with a flat voice, still not looking at me. "I thought you would stay longer in the hospital, being dramatic." Linda stepped forward before I could respond. "Mrs. Vivian, I am Linda Ramirez, an attorney specializing in family law. I am here representing my cousin Sarah in legal matters related to this property and recent events." Now Vivian looked up. Her expression hardened upon seeing Linda's briefcase. "A lawyer. Please, Sarah is always so dramatic. You almost die and you are already walking around with lawyers. How fast?" "You almost killed me," I said, and my voice sounded stronger than it had sounded in years. There is a difference. Vivian let out a fake laugh. "Still, with that, I already told you I just wanted to save money. It was not a big deal." Linda opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. On the contrary, Mrs. Vivian, it was a very big deal. So much so that I have here the official medical report from Dr. Evans, where she declares that the alteration of my cousin's medication put her life in real and immediate danger. I also have her statement from the hospital where she admitted to splitting the pills. The color began to drain from Vivian's face. I did not admit anything. They misunderstood me. "There are witnesses," Linda continued relentlessly. "Dr. Pierce, Dr. Evans, 2 nurses, and Ryan. Everyone heard your confession." Vivian turned toward my son. "Ryan, say something. Tell them they are exaggerating." But Ryan just shook his head with his eyes fixed on the floor. "I cannot, Vivi. I cannot keep lying for you." Linda placed documents on the coffee table. "Besides the crime of endangering the life of another person, we have evidence of financial abuse. For 3 years, you forced Mrs. Sarah to pay you $500 a month from her pension under the threat of kicking her out of her own house." "She had to cooperate," Vivian protested, but her voice had lost all its assurance. "She lived here, used utilities. This house has Sarah's name on the deed." Linda interrupted, showing the documents. "She is the sole legal owner. You had no right to charge her absolutely anything. In fact, my cousin has the right to recover every dollar you took from her. $500 a month for 36 months. That is $18,000. The silence that followed was absolute. Vivian had gone completely pale. "I do not have that money." "I know," said Linda with a cold smile. "That is why we brought this." She pulled out more papers. "A complete inventory of all the items you bought and brought into this house. Clothes, furniture, decoration. It all totals approximately $20,000. Vivian jumped to her feet. "You cannot take my things." "They are things bought with stolen money," Linda replied. "Money that you extorted from my cousin. Legally, all of that belongs to Sarah as restitution." At that moment, there was a knock on the door. Linda had coordinated perfectly. Lucy and Mr. Frank entered, followed by a police officer that Linda had contacted. "Good morning," the officer greeted, showing his badge. "Officer Miller, I am here to witness the service of a restraining order." Vivian recoiled as if she had been slapped. "Restraining order? This is madness." The officer handed her the papers. "Mrs. Vivian Cordero, you are hereby prohibited from coming within 100 yards of Mrs. Sarah Ramirez, of her residence, or of any property in her name. You have 24 hours to vacate the property located at—" "No!" screamed Vivian, and finally her mask broke completely. "This is my house. I have lived here for 3 years. You cannot kick me out just like that." "Yes, we can," I said, and my voice was firm as a rock. "Because this was never your house, Vivian. It was mine. It always was. She looked at me with pure hatred. You useless old woman, after everything I did for you. I gave you company. I redesigned this horrible house. I tried to modernize you. And this is how you pay me. Company. I repeated, feeling how the fury finally found its voice. You took my bedroom. You locked me in the guest room. You threw out the rocking chair my father had made for my wedding. You humiliated me in front of your friends. You stole my money. And you almost killed me by altering my medicines. Is that what you call doing something for me? Everything I did was so this house would be worth something. Vivian screamed. It was full of old trash of dead people's junk. I improved it. You did not improve it, interrupted Lucy, my neighbor, with a trembling but brave voice. You stripped it. I saw how you treated Sarah. I heard you call her a useless old woman from my window. I saw how you threw her things in the trash. Mr. Frank nodded. I was also a witness. Sarah came to my store crying, buying the minimum because you took her money. Once she told me she did not even have enough for a pound of sugar because you had forced her to pay an invented electric bill. Vivian turned to Ryan in desperation. Are you going to allow this? Are you going to let them humiliate me like this? I am your wife. Ryan finally looked up. His eyes were red, but his voice was steady. Not anymore. Vivian. I spoke with a lawyer yesterday. I filed for divorce this morning. The world stopped. Vivian staggered, holding on to the back of the armchair. What I married you because I thought you were good, Ryan continued, and I saw tears rolling down his cheeks. Because I thought you loved me, but you only wanted this house. You only wanted to get rid of my mother to keep her property. That is not true. No, Linda took out her phone. Because we have this. She pressed play. From the phone speakers came Vivian's voice, crystal clear. The sooner the old woman goes, the sooner the house will be ours. Ryan is too noble to kick her out, but I am not. I am going to make life so miserable for her that she decides to leave herself. And if not well at her age, and with that sick heart, nature can help a little. It was a recording of a phone call. Vivian talking to someone, probably her sister. I do not know how Linda got it, but there it was, the irrefutable evidence of her intentions. Vivian collapsed into the armchair, completely defeated. That was taken out of context. There is no context that justifies wishing for someone's death, said the officer. Ma'am, I suggest you cooperate with the voluntary eviction. Otherwise, we will proceed legally, and this will get much more complicated for you. I looked at that woman who had turned my life into a hell for 3 years. That woman who had slept in my bed, eaten at my table, breathed my air, all while planning my demise. And I felt nothing. No fury, no sadness, just relief that it was finally over. You have 24 hours, I said calmly. You can take your clothes and personal items. Everything else stays as payment for what you stole from me. And if you ever come near me or my house again, I will make sure the criminal charges for attempted murder go forward. Understood? Vivian looked at me with eyes full of hatred. You are going to regret this. You are going to die alone in this miserable house. No one is going to love you. No one is going to visit you. I prefer to die alone, and in peace, I replied, than to live accompanied by someone who wants to kill me. The officer escorted Vivian out of the living room so she could pack her things. Ryan approached me with a broken face. Mom, You also have to leave, I said softly but firmly. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. You need your own space, and I need to recover mine. Are you kicking me out? I am liberating you, both of us. I took his hand. I love you, Ryan, but I cannot live with you after everything that happened. We need time. We need to rebuild our relationship from zero without either of us living under the other's roof. My son cried in my arms like the boy he once was, and I cried too, not out of sadness, but out of liberation. Because finally, after 3 years of being invisible in my own house, I had recovered my voice, and this time no one would take it from me again. Vivian left my house 24 hours later with 3 suitcases full of clothes and an expression of hatred that could have burned everything in its path. I watched her from my living room window, while she put her things into a cab. She did not take the expensive furniture she had bought, nor the abstract paintings, nor the Italian espresso machine. All of that stayed as part of the payment for the $18,000 she owed me. Ryan helped her load the suitcases. I saw how she tried to hug him, how he pulled away stiffly. I heard because I left the window open on purpose when she begged him one last time. Ryan, please, all of this is a misunderstanding. We can start over somewhere else far from your mother, just the 2 of us. There is no 2 of us. Vivian, my son replied with a voice that sounded 10 years older. There never really was there? You just wanted the house. I love you. No, you love what I could give you. There is a difference. He closed the cab door. The lawyer will contact you for the divorce papers. When the cab drove away, I felt a weight of 3 years lift from my shoulders. Linda, who had been by my side during the whole process, put an arm around my shoulders. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Free," I replied, and it was true. But Vivian's story did not end with that cab driving away down the street. Oh no, justice has curious ways of completing its cycles, and Vivian was about to discover that when you build your life on lies and manipulation, the whole building can collapse in a matter of days. It was Lucy, my neighbor, who told me the first part. 3 days after the eviction, she came to visit me with sweet bread and coffee like in the old times, before Vivian forbade me from having visitors. "Sarah, you are not going to believe what I found out," she said with eyes shining with fresh gossip. "Do you remember Vivian's sister, Diane? The one who always came in that brand new car?" I nodded. Diane had visited the house several times, always dressed in expensive clothes, always bragging about her perfect life. Well, it turns out Vivian owed her money, a lot of money. Diane lent her $10,000 a year ago so Vivian could invest in a business. Obviously, there was no business. Vivian spent it on clothes and outings. Lucy took a sip of her coffee, and now Diane is furious because she found out everything that happened. She is demanding her money back immediately. And does Vivian have that money? What do you think? Lucy laughed. The crazy woman spent everything on appearances. She does not even have enough for rent for a room. But that was not all. Ryan arrived that afternoon with information that completed the puzzle of who Vivian Cordero really was. "Mom," my son said, sitting on the sofa with a somber expression. "I hired a private investigator. I needed to know who I had really married." He took out a folder and opened it on the table. There were photographs, documents, records. Vivian has debts with 4 different banks, credit cards that she maxed out buying things she could never pay for. The total is $25,000. All the cards are in her name. That is why I never knew. $25,000. A fortune for someone who did not work and who had been living off my money and Ryan's for 3 years. There is more. My son continued, turning to another page. Before meeting me, Vivian was married. Twice. I froze. Twice her first husband left her when he discovered she had emptied his bank account. The second one kicked her out of his house when he realized she had forged his signature on documents to sell a piece of land he owned. She almost went to jail for that. I looked at my son, seeing the pain in his eyes upon discovering that the woman he loved was actually a professional con artist, a predator who identified vulnerable men, widowers, lonely men with properties, and used them until she squeezed them dry. "Ryan, she chose you for something specific too, right?" I asked gently. He nodded with tears in his eyes. "Because she knew you had this house. She investigated me before approaching. She knew you were a widow, that the house was paid off, that sooner or later I would inherit it. Everything was calculated from the beginning." Linda's phone rang that same afternoon. She answered, and her expression changed to professional satisfaction. "Interesting," she said when she hung up. She looked at me with a smile. It was Officer Miller. Apparently, when word spread about the restraining order and the accusations against Vivian, other people started talking. What people? Do you remember Vivian's friend Cynthia, the one who came to eat with those other women? Linda consulted her notes. Well, Cynthia had lent $3,000 to Vivian 6 months ago, money she obviously never saw back. Now she is filing a lawsuit. And the other friends. One claims she owes her $2,000, another won $3,000. Apparently, Vivian borrowed from all her acquaintances with the same story, that you were very sick, that she needed money for your medicines and treatments, that she would pay it back as soon as she inherited the house. I was speechless. Vivian had used my real illness to scam her own friends. She had commercialized my suffering. There is more, Linda continued, almost enjoying delivering every piece of information. The gym Vivian went to, she owes 4 months of membership fees. The nail salon, 3 months. The boutique where she bought clothes, she has outstanding bills for $5,000. Vivian had lived like a queen, but with borrowed, stolen, and never paid money. And now without the house she coveted so much, without the husband who supported her lies, without the roof that gave her respectability, her entire house of cards was collapsing. 1 week later, Ryan came with the final news. Mom, they found Vivian. We're living in a rented room in a trailer park on the edge of town. $200 a week, shared bathroom. He paused. Her sister Diane filed a formal lawsuit. The friends, too. The banks initiated collection processes, and the boutique where she owed the $5,000 filed charges for fraud because she signed promissory notes she never fulfilled. And she is desperate. She called me yesterday crying, begging me to withdraw the divorce petition. She says if we stay married, we can sell this house and pay all her debts, that we can start over. And what did you tell her? That this house was never mine to sell, that it is yours, and that if she tries to approach you or this property, I will ensure personally that she goes to jail. My son looked at me with a mixture of pain and pride. I told her I learned from the best from my mother, who finally found her voice and her strength. 2 weeks later, Linda arrived with the final document. She placed it on the table with a smile of satisfaction. The criminal complaint for endangering your life proceeded. The judge considered the evidence, the medical report, the altered pills, the recording of the phone call, and issued a sentence. What kind of sentence? 2 years of prison suspended under probation. That means she will not go to jail immediately, but if she commits any other crime in the next 2 years, she will serve the full sentence. Furthermore, she has to pay a fine of $5,000 to the state and the $18,000 she stole from you. She does not have that money, I said. I know. That is why the judge ordered the seizure of her assets. The problem is that Vivian has no assets. The only thing of value she possessed was the expensive clothes she bought with your money, and that is already here. Linda leaned back on the sofa. Basically, Vivian Cordero went from living in her own home in the suburbs with a hard-working husband and all the comforts to living in a $200 a week room with debts of over $50,000, a criminal record, and no way to pay them. All because she wanted more than what belonged to her, I murmured. All because she believed she could destroy someone without consequences, Linda corrected. A month after Vivian left, Mr. Frank told me he had seen her. She was at the flea market, Sarah selling used clothes on the ground. Those expensive clothes she always wore now, she is selling them for $10, $20 a piece, trying to gather money to pay even a fraction of what she owes. The image impacted me. Vivian, with her expensive heels and her dyed blonde hair that already showed dark roots, sitting on the ground of the flea market on a mat, selling the same dresses she had bought with my stolen money. The same dresses she paraded around in while calling me a useless old woman. Do you know what is the most ironic thing, continued Mr. Frank? The people at the market already know who she is. Word has already spread about what she did to you. No one buys from her. They just pass by, look at her, and keep walking. That was true poetic justice. It was not just that Vivian had lost the house, the husband, the comfortable life. It was that she had lost something more valuable in a community like ours, her reputation. In our neighborhood where everyone knows everyone, where stories pass from neighbor to neighbor, Vivian Cordero had become synonymous with betrayal and cruelty. The ladies who before admired her now crossed the street to avoid greeting her. The friends who before had lunch with her now sued her. The shopkeepers who before sold to her on credit now demanded payment up front. Ryan kept his word. He moved out 2 months later to a small but own apartment in the city. He came to visit me every Sunday. He brought pastries. He helped me with minor repairs in the house. Our relationship was rebuilding itself, slowly, honestly. Do you know what I learned from all this? Mom, he told me one Sunday while we drank coffee in the living room, that true love is not imposed, it is respected. Vivian isolated me from you. She made me believe that loving you meant choosing only her. But that was not love, it was control. And now you understand the difference, I said, squeezing his hand. And now I understand that I almost lost my mother for a woman who never really loved me, who only saw in me a means to an end. The last time I heard about Vivian was 6 months after the eviction. Linda called me with the news. Vivian left the country. Apparently, she took the little she had left and went to Mexico. She left all her debts unpaid, all the lawsuits unresolved. There is an arrest warrant if she returns to the States. Is she gone forever? She will probably look for another vulnerable man somewhere else. People like her do not change, Sarah. They just change victims. I hung up the phone and looked around my living room. My mahogany rocking chair, rescued from the backyard and restored by a neighborhood carpenter, was back in its place by the window. My lace curtains, which I had stored in a box, hung in the windows again. The photographs of Henry and me were back on the wall. My house had gone back to being my house. I sat in my rocking chair and rocked gently, feeling the familiar creak of the old wood. I thought about Vivian fleeing to another country, carrying her debts and her destroyed reputation like invisible suitcases she could never let go of. She had wanted to take everything from me, my house, my dignity, my life, but in the end, the one who lost everything was her. Because when you build your existence on the destruction of others, eventually there is nothing solid left to stand on. That is true poetic justice. I did not need to destroy Vivian. She destroyed herself all on her own. I just had to find the courage to defend myself, to say enough to remember that my life had value. And now sitting in my rocking chair in my living room in my house, drinking coffee from my favorite mug that I had rescued from the trash, I understood something fundamental. The sweetest revenge is not to destroy the one who hurt you. It is to outlive them. It is to recover. It is to live well while they carry the consequences of their own actions. Vivian left with empty hands, running from her debts and her shame. I stayed with everything that really mattered: my home, my dignity, and the certainty that I would never again let anyone make me a prisoner in my own life. 8 months have passed since Vivian left my house with her 3 suitcases and her hatred. 8 months since I recovered my life. And while I sit in my restored mahogany rocking chair with the afternoon sun coming through the clean windows, I can barely recognize the woman I was a year ago. The house has life again. Not the oppressive silence of when Vivian controlled every space, but the peaceful silence of a home that breathes easily. The walls she painted minimal gray are now a soft yellow that I chose myself. The lace curtains dance with the breeze. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee and sweet bread fills the kitchen every morning without anyone telling me I am using too much gas or sugar. My health improved surprisingly fast once I went back to taking my medication correctly. Dr. Evans monitors me every month and always says the same thing. Sarah, your heart is responding wonderfully. It seems that getting rid of the toxic stress was the best medicine. She is right. My heart beats now with a steady, reliable rhythm. The dizziness disappeared. The cold night sweats went away. I sleep in my recovered bedroom in a new bed I bought myself with my money without having to ask anyone for permission. Ryan comes every Sunday without fail. We drink coffee, we talk, sometimes we watch a movie. But now there is something different in our relationship: respect. He no longer treats me like an obligation or a burden. He treats me like what I am, his mother, but also an independent woman with her own life. Do you know what, Mom? He told me 2 weeks ago while we were eating dinner I had prepared. I never told you directly, but I am proud of you, of how you defended yourself, of how you did not allow Vivian to destroy you. She almost succeeded, I admitted. Almost, but the key word is almost. Ryan took my hand. You taught me that it is never too late to find your voice. I was 42 years old and allowed someone to manipulate me. You were 67 and found the strength to fight. That inspires me. My son is in therapy now. He is working on understanding how he allowed Vivian to manipulate him, how he lost sight of his own values. It is a slow, painful process, but necessary, and I am proud of him for facing it. Linda became more than my cousin the lawyer. She became my close friend, my confidant. She comes to visit me every week sometimes, just to drink tea and chat. Other times, she brings cases of other older women who are living situations similar to mine. Sarah, she told me a month ago, would you mind talking to a lady I know? Her name is Rebecca. Her daughter-in-law treats her very badly, but she is afraid to say something because she does not want to lose her son. That is how something I never imagined started. I became a sort of informal counselor for older women suffering from family abuse. Rebecca came to my house, we drank coffee, and I told her my story. She cried the whole time, saying it is exactly what is happening to me. I explained what Linda had taught me, that being afraid is normal, but that love should not hurt, that children can love their mothers without allowing their partners to mistreat them, that it is never too late to set boundaries. 3 weeks later, Rebecca called me. She had confronted her daughter-in-law with legal support. She had recovered the money they had taken from her. Her voice trembled with emotion. Sarah, I did it. I found my voice. Like you found yours. Since then, other women have come. Grace, 70 years old, whose son-in-law treated her like a servant. Hope, 65, whose daughter had isolated her from her friends. Each with her story, but all with the same pain. Being invisible in their own lives, and I listen to them, I share my story. I give them Linda's number. I accompany them to discover that they are not alone, that abuse is not love, that they deserve dignity, regardless of their age. Mr. Frank told me that at the market they call me Mrs. Sarah, the one who fought back. At first it made me uncomfortable, but now I see it as an honor. If my story can inspire a single woman not to stay silent, then almost dying was worth it. The rocking chair where I am sitting is my symbol of victory. I rescued it. I restored it. I put it back in its place, just as I rescued myself. The carpenter who repaired it, Mr. Arthur, told me something beautiful. Mrs. Sarah, this wood is 40 years old. It is chipped, battered, but look how strong it still is. Like you. On the wall by the window hangs a photograph Ryan took 2 weeks ago. It is of me sitting in this rocking chair with a cup of coffee in my hands, smiling. A real smile, not forced. My son framed it with a plaque that says, Sarah Ramirez Survivor Warrior. I use my full pension now. Every dollar is mine to spend as I decide. I bought new plants for the patio. I had the roof leaks fixed. I bought myself a terracotta-colored dress, not blue because that color tires me. Now that makes me feel pretty. They are small things, but they are mine. Decided by me, paid for by me, enjoyed by me. Lucy, my neighbor, comes almost every afternoon. We drink coffee, we talk, we laugh. She tells me neighborhood gossip, harmless, funny things. And I tell her about the women I've been helping. Sometimes we invite other neighbors. My living room, which Vivian had turned into a cold and minimal museum, is now full of voices, laughter, life. Do you know what is the most beautiful thing about all this? Sarah Lucy told me yesterday, that you recovered your light. When Vivian was here, it was as if you had been turned off. Now you shine again. Shine, what a beautiful word, because that is how I feel, luminous, alive, present. My heart health is stable, but I remain careful. I take my pills whole, not split, every morning at the same time. I go to my medical appointments religiously. I walk 30 minutes every afternoon through the park. I eat well, I sleep well, I live well. Dr. Evans told me at my last appointment, "Sarah, your labs are perfect. Your heart is functioning better than a year ago. Do you know why? Because you are no longer carrying the weight of 3 people. You only carry your own." She is right. During 3 years, I carried the weight of keeping the peace, of not causing problems, of being invisible so as not to bother. That weight almost killed me. Now I only carry my own responsibilities, my own joys, my own decisions. And it turns out that when you only carry what is yours, life is much lighter. 3 weeks ago, I received a letter. It was from Vivian. Linda forwarded it to me because it had arrived at her office. Vivian cannot contact me directly because of the restraining order. The letter came from Mexico. Linda asked me if I wanted to read it. I thought about it a lot. Finally, I said yes. Not because I owed Vivian anything, but because I needed to close that chapter completely. The letter was short, written by hand on cheap paper. It said, "Sarah, I am in Mexico working cleaning houses to pay my debts. I live in a room smaller than the guest room where I put you. I eat once a day. I have nothing. I write this not to ask for forgiveness. I know I do not deserve it, but to tell you that you were right. I built my life trying to take theirs from others, and now I have nothing left. I hope you are happy in your house, in your..." At least one of the two made it. V. I read the letter once. Then I folded it carefully and put it in an envelope that I kept in the back of a drawer. I did not feel triumph reading it. I did not feel satisfaction for her suffering. I only felt closure. Like when you finish a sad book and close it knowing you never have to read it again. "Are you going to respond?" Linda asked. "No," I said. "My response is the life I am living now. That is the only response she needs." Ryan is seeing someone new. He introduced her to me a month ago. Her name is Patty. She is 45 years old. She's an elementary school teacher. She is kind but not fake, polite but not manipulative. And most importantly, she treated me with respect from the first moment. "Mrs. Sarah." She told me when I met her. "Ryan told me everything that happened. I want you to know that I would never ever try to replace you or take your place. If this relationship prospers, I would love to be your friend, not your competition." I cried when she told me that. I cried because finally I understood how it should be. 2 adult women respecting each other without threats, without territories to defend. "Patty," I told her, "I do not need you to promise me anything. I just need you to be good to my son, and from what I see, you already are." This morning, I woke up early as always. I prepared my fresh coffee calmly without rushing. I sat in my rocking chair and watched the sunrise through the window. The sky was painted orange and pink, and I thought about all the mornings I lost feeling miserable, invisible, worthless. I will not get those mornings back. Those 3 years are gone. But I have these. Every sunrise where I can breathe deep in my own house, where I can decide how to use my day, where I can be myself without asking for permission. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror after washing my face. I saw wrinkles. 68 years leave a mark. I saw silver hair that I no longer bother to dye. I saw tired but clear eyes. And for the first time in years, I liked what I saw. I did not see a useless old woman as Vivian called me. I did not see a burden as she made me feel. I saw Sarah Ramirez, widow, mother, survivor, warrior. I saw a woman who almost lost everything but refused to lose the most important thing, herself. Now as the sun sets and the house fills with that golden afternoon light, I tuck myself into my rocking chair with a blanket over my legs and a book in my hands. It is a book about brave women who changed history. Linda gave it to me with a dedication for Sarah, who changed her own history. I hear the familiar sound of the key in the door. It is Ryan arriving for our Sunday dinner. He brings Chinese food, my favorite, and his genuine smile. "Hi, Mom," he says, kissing my forehead. "How was your week?" "Good," I reply. "Very good." And it is true. It was good. Like all my weeks now, because I learned something that every woman should know regardless of her age. Your life belongs to you. Your space belongs to you. Your dignity belongs to you. And no one, absolutely no one, has the right to take them from you. It took me 67 years and almost dying to learn it. But I learned it. And now I dedicate my days to making sure other women do not take so long to discover it. Because true wealth is not in the houses you own or the money you keep. It is in the ability to look in the mirror and recognize the woman you see. It is in being able to breathe deep without fear in your own home. It is in knowing that you survived, that you recovered, that you found your voice when everyone expected you to stay silent. That is me now. Sarah Ramirez, 68 years old, survivor, warrior, free. And this time, no one will take that from me. Never again. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that it is never too late to recover your life and your dignity, leave me your comment. Tell me, where are you listening from? Have you lived something similar? Or do you know someone who needs to hear these words, "Your story matters as much as mine"? And together, all the voices that were once silenced, we can create a chorus impossible to ignore. Like if you believe that respect has no age and subscribe to keep sharing stories of life, of struggle, and of women who refuse to disappear. Because we all deserve to live with dignity. We all deserve to be seen. And we all deserve a second chance to shine. Remember? True freedom begins the day you decide that your life is worth more than the peace of others.